Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Hidden Tales. Your support helps bring more powerful stories to life. She had always believed that love was something you protected with patience, kindness, and unwavering loyalty. Elegant in both appearance and manner, she carried herself with quiet grace, the kind that drew admiration without demanding it. For years, she had poured her heart into her marriage, shaping her world around her husband's comfort and success. On the morning of February 14th, she woke with soft excitement fluttering in her chest. Valentine's Day had always meant something to her, not because of expensive gifts, but because of the promise of togetherness. By afternoon, their home glowed with anticipation. She arranged red roses in crystal vases, lit vanilla-scented candles across the dining room, and prepared his favorite meal from scratch. A small velvet box rested beside his plate, holding a silver watch engraved with a simple message, "Forever, my love." She smiled as she imagined his reaction. Yet beneath the warmth lingered faint shadows she refused to acknowledge. His recent late nights at work, the way he angled his phone away from her, the growing emotional distance that had slipped quietly between them like an invisible wall. Whenever doubt whispered in her mind, she silenced it with trust. That evening, just hours before dinner, he called. His tone was rushed. "An urgent business meeting," he said. "Important clients." He couldn't avoid it. She paused, disappointment flickering briefly in her eyes, but she swallowed it. "I understand," she replied gently. Love, she believed, required faith. So she waited. Hours passed. The candles burned lower. The food grew cold. Seated at the beautifully decorated table she had prepared with devotion, she folded her hands in her lap and stared at the empty chair across from her, unaware that miles away, beneath glittering chandeliers, her husband was celebrating Valentine's night in someone else's arms. In a luxury hotel suite overlooking the city skyline, he laughed freely, the weight of deception not yet heavy enough to bend his conscience. Dressed sharply, confident in his charm, he convinced himself he deserved this indulgence. Across from him sat his lover, glamorous, perfectly styled, her lipstick a bold crimson that matched the roses scattered across the hotel bed. She enjoyed the thrill more than the romance. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing she had been chosen over a wife waiting somewhere at home. He dismissed thoughts of consequences. His wife was predictable, loyal, too devoted to question him. He had grown comfortable in her silence. Back at home, her phone buzzed softly against the polished dining table. At first, she ignored it, assuming it was another work notification of his. But when the screen lit again, curiosity nudged her fingers forward. A tagged social media photo. Her breath caught as she opened it. There he was, smiling, holding a champagne glass, standing intimately close to a woman she had never seen before. The caption read, "Best Valentine's Night Ever, Red Heart." For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. Shock froze her in place, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear her own breathing. This had to be a misunderstanding. A business dinner. A coincidence. She refreshed the page. More photos appeared, closer, clearer, undeniable. Denial shattered into rage. Her chest tightened as heat rushed through her veins. She stood abruptly, knocking over a candle. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. The room that once felt romantic now felt suffocating. Then came the silence. A deep, terrifying calm settled over her. She lowered herself back into her chair, staring at the flickering candlelight as something inside her quietly broke. She did not call him. She did not send a message. Instead, she began to think, observe, remember. That was the night her love died, but her strength was born. The next morning, she did not scream. She did not accuse. She did not demand explanations. Instead, she made coffee as she always did, her movement steady, her expression unreadable. When he returned home with a fabricated story about late meetings and exhausted clients, she listened quietly, nodding at the appropriate moments. Inside, something fundamental had shifted. Love had dissolved into awareness. Rather than confrontation, she chose strategy. Over the following weeks, she began gathering financial information with meticulous care. Bank statements were copied, investment records reviewed, business documents quietly photographed and stored. She documented evidence of his infidelity, saving screenshots and transaction histories without leaving a trace. Every late-night charge, every hotel bill, every unexplained transfer became part of a silent archive. At the same time, she turned inward. Instead of collapsing under humiliation, she redirected her energy toward herself. Years ago, she had been ambitious, talented, driven. She had once built a promising career in business consulting, known for her sharp instincts and creative problem-solving. But when his company began to grow, she stepped back to support him. She handled networking dinners, hosted corporate events, and sacrificed promotions so he could shine brighter. She convinced herself that his success was theirs. Now she remembered who she used to be. She enrolled in advanced business courses under the pretense of personal development. She reached out discreetly to former colleagues and mentors who still respected her capabilities. Slowly, doors she thought were closed began to reopen. Invitations to industry gatherings returned. Old contacts welcomed her with surprising warmth. Emotionally, her journey moved in stages. The pain was still there, sharp and unpredictable, but clarity followed. She began to see the marriage not as a fairy tale broken by one mistake, but as a pattern of imbalance she had ignored for years. Clarity strengthened into determination. She would not be the abandoned wife left with nothing but memories. Meanwhile, her husband grew careless. Confident in her silence, he stopped hiding as carefully. He assumed she was too devoted, too dependent, too forgiving to ever walk away. He never realized she had already left him in her heart. She was no longer fighting for her marriage. She was preparing for her future. The breaking point came not in private, but in public. It happened at a high-profile corporate anniversary party hosted by one of his business partners. She attended beside him, poised and impeccably dressed, every inch the supportive wife. Conversations flowed, glasses clinked, cameras flashed. Then she saw her. The lover entered the ballroom in a shimmering red gown, unapologetically bold. Whispers followed her. She approached their circle with deliberate confidence, greeting her husband first, her hand lingering on his arm a second too long. Then she turned to the wife with a thin smile. "Oh, you must be the inspiration behind his long working hours," she said lightly, just loud enough for others to hear. Soft laughter rippled through the group. The insult was indirect, polished, cruel. The wife held her gaze, unflinching. What cut deeper was not the lover's mockery, but her husband's silence. He did not correct her, did not defend his wife. He merely adjusted his cufflinks and looked away. In that instant, something final snapped. Later that night, at home, she stood in the living room as he loosened his tie, irritated by her unusual quietness. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. "I know everything." He froze briefly, then scoffed. Denial came first, then annoyance. He accused her of overthinking, of jealousy, of dramatics. He truly believed she would cry, argue, forgive, like always. Instead, she walked to the hallway table and handed him a sealed envelope. Divorce papers. He laughed at first, shaking his head in disbelief. "You won't survive without me," he said casually. But as he flipped through the documents, the laughter faded. Detailed financial records. Evidence of infidelity. Legal filings already in motion. She had protected herself. Strategically. Thoroughly. For the first time, he realized he was no longer in control. Her re-entry into the professional world did not go unnoticed. At a private industry conference held in a glass-walled tower downtown, she delivered a strategic analysis that quietly impressed several senior executives. Among them was a man many referred to with a mixture of admiration and caution, the CEO of one of the fastest-growing firms in the region. He was known not only for his sharp business instincts, but for his calm authority and emotional discipline. Years ago, he had been her senior in university, brilliant, focused, already marked for leadership. He recognized her immediately. After the session, he approached her not with flirtation, but with respect. He spoke about her presentation, her clarity, her structured thinking, the way she anticipated market shifts before they appeared obvious. Not once did his gaze wander dismissively, nor did he reduce her to politeness or charm. He addressed her as an equal. Their first meetings were strictly professional. He invited her to consult on a strategic expansion project. She accepted cautiously, aware of whispers linking him to her husband's biggest competitor. If anything, she refused to be used as a pawn in anyone's rivalry. But he never once mentioned her marriage or the unfolding divorce. Instead, he focused on ideas. Over weeks of collaboration, conversations extended beyond spreadsheets and projections. They spoke about leadership, resilience, and the cost of ambition. He listened more than he spoke. And when he did speak, it was thoughtful, measured, steady. He saw what others missed, the discipline beneath her composure, the quiet ache she carried without complaint. He admired her not because she had been betrayed, but because she refused to let betrayal define her. She remained guarded. She did not share personal pain easily, nor did she mistake kindness for romance. Trust, she had learned, must be earned slowly. Yet something about his presence felt safe, not overwhelming, not demanding. He never tried to rescue her. He simply walked beside her professionally, offering opportunity without expectation. There were moments, brief, almost imperceptible, when silence between them felt charged. A shared glance across a conference table. A pause after laughter lingered a second too long. Neither acknowledged it. Healing did not arrive dramatically. It came in small realizations. She could speak without fear of being dismissed. She could disagree without being silenced. She could succeed without shrinking. For the first time in years, she felt seen. And somewhere beneath professionalism and restraint, something gentle and unspoken began to unfold. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly once initiated. What her husband had once dismissed as an emotional threat turned into a meticulously prepared legal strategy. Assets were divided according to documented evidence. His concealed transactions and misuse of shared funds weakened his position. Several key investors quietly reconsidered their partnerships after rumors of personal scandal surfaced. Reputation, he learned, was as fragile as trust. Financially, he did not collapse, but he bled. Properties were sold. Accounts restructured. The image of a stable family man that once strengthened his brand quietly eroded. The lover, once radiant at his side, began to withdraw. Invitations became less frequent. Her messages shorter. She had been attracted to his status, his confidence, the thrill of secrecy. But uncertainty did not suit her. As his influence dimmed, so did her interest. Eventually, she disappeared from his life as easily as she had entered it. Alone in a half-empty house, he began to understand the weight of what he had lost. He reached out to her repeatedly, calls, messages, unexpected visits under the guise of closure. When she finally agreed to meet in a neutral cafe, he barely recognized the woman sitting across from him. She looked composed, confident, almost luminous. Success suited her. Independence refined her. His voice trembled as he spoke. He remembered her loyalty, the dinners she prepared, the sacrifices she made for his career. He admitted he had taken her devotion for granted. Regret poured from him in fragmented sentences. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I never thought you would actually leave." She listened without anger, without tears. The absence of emotion unsettled him more than rage ever could. "I already left," she replied softly. Meanwhile, her professional partnership with the CEO deepened naturally. Projects expanded. Trust strengthened. Where her former husband offered excuses and instability, this man offered consistency and respect. There was no desperation in him, no frantic apologies, only steady presence. One man clung to the past in fear of losing it. The other stood calmly in the present, building something lasting. And she knew the difference. The news traveled faster than he expected. At first, it was a whisper among industry circles. Then it became a headline in business columns and social media feeds. She was marrying the CEO. The announcement was elegant, understated, yet impossible to ignore. Their engagement photo alone radiated confidence, her hand resting lightly in his, both standing as equals rather than one overshadowing the other. The wedding was nothing short of extraordinary. Hosted at a grand waterfront estate, attended by influential figures, respected entrepreneurs, and long-standing partners, it was the kind of event that symbolized not just romance but alliance. Crystal chandeliers reflected soft golden light across marble floors. White roses lined the aisle. A string quartet played as she walked forward in a gown that embodied grace rather than extravagance. She looked radiant. Not merely beautiful, but assured. Her posture carried strength. Her smile held peace. There was no trace of the woman who once waited alone at a candlelit table. He saw the photos online first, then video clips. Each image felt like a quiet blow. The lover who once clung to his arm was long gone, having distanced herself when his influence waned. His own company struggled to recover from reputational damage and poor decisions made in distraction. Invitations he once received automatically now required negotiation. He told himself he would not watch the live stream. Yet when the ceremony began, he found himself alone in his dim living room, laptop open, volume low. He watched as she exchanged vows with calm certainty. He watched the CEO look at her with admiration, not possession. Applause filled the speakers as they were pronounced husband and wife. In that moment, realization settled fully. He didn't lose her that day in court. He lost her the night he chose someone else. Years passed, and time revealed what choices truly cost. She did not simply marry into success. She built it alongside him. As an equal partner in the company, her strategies helped expand operations internationally. Industry magazines feature her not as someone's wife, but as a visionary leader in her own right. Boardrooms respected her voice. Employees admired her fairness. She was emotionally fulfilled, professionally accomplished, and deeply valued. At home, her marriage reflected the same balance. The CEO treated her with dignity, consultation replacing command, partnership replacing ego. Decisions were shared, achievements celebrated together. On difficult days, he stood beside her, not ahead, not behind. Meanwhile, her former husband lived quietly with the consequences of arrogance. Financial strain forced him to downsize. Business partnerships remained cautious. Trust, once broken publicly, never fully repaired. The house that once echoed with confidence now felt empty. Some nights, he scrolled through old photos, pausing on images of Valentine's dinners she had arranged so carefully. He often remembered that particular February 14th, the flicker of candles he had ignored, the devotion he had dismissed. Regret became his most faithful companion. One Valentine's Day years later, she stood on the balcony of her city penthouse, overlooking lights that shimmered like constellations below. Inside, a private dinner had been arranged, not by her, but for her. Roses filled the room. Soft music played. Her husband approached, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead before handing her a small velvet box. This time, she was not waiting. She was cherished. Betrayal may break a heart, but sometimes it builds an empire. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Hidden Tales.